Coming up on No Pulp, we're still a month away from March, but madness has arrived early, upset after upset in a crazy slate of top 25 matchups.
Plus, I'm taking on Ryan Bridges in the juicer. I've heard he's been talking a lot of smack. We'll see how that goes down.
Also, lacrosse season started. We give you the plays of the week and more. No Pulp starts right now.
Kansas State has been on fire this year.
Missouri is one of the most fraudulent teams in college basketball.
And it was proved
They're not going to fire him. He's the best player in program history.
Side to Lawrence for the win. Yes, he got it.
She is the Shohei Ohtani of college softball. This is a team that's potentially going to be a top 10 team in the country.
How you feeling?
I'm excited to win the juicer.
LSU has captured its very first national championship.
Welcome into our CitrusTV studios for this episode of No Pulp. Alongside Adam Gotkin, I'm Adam Avin. I got confirmed in my ear from our producers that we are the first hosting pair ever to have the same name.
I feel like we're going to have
crazy.
to have some sort of like differentiator. I think what we can do is say handsome Adam, other Adam. Oh, you okay with that one?
I think we're gonna have to check out with that, but I think meeting someone with the same name as you is pretty unique. You know who else is unique? A lot of people, but Juju Watkins, the star freshman point guard for USC, dropped 51 points in a game against number 4 Stanford last week. Adam, this is something that just doesn't happen.
It doesn't. You rarely ever see a college basketball player drop 51 points, let alone a freshman. I think that might be the most impressive thing about all of this is that Juju Watkins is still in just her first year, and it wasn't like she dropped 51 against some random no-name school. It was against Stanford, who's one of the best programs in the sport.
Yeah, Stanford, the number 4 team in the country. They've had it rough as of late, and Juju Watkins did not help any better. I think the craziest stat out of it all was that she scored 51 of her team's 67 points. That's 77% of the team's points. That just isn't sustainable for a team that is ranked right now, that's expected to go on a run. Juju Watkins, as a freshman, is at the helm of that, Adam. I'm not sure that USC team is as strong as we think they might be.
I'm going to agree with you here. You cannot go into March and have your freshman being the only player you rely on, especially at the guard position, because just the emphasis on turnovers, the emphasis on doing the little things right really stands out when it comes to March Madness, and freshmen usually struggle in those moments. Also, to only have 5 assists, that's not team basketball. Playing as a unit, playing as a team is what wins games in tournament time, and that's it's just not what this USC team has done.
Juju Watkins leads the team with 3 assists on the year. That's not a lot, and so that team clearly has some struggles moving the ball around. I mean, you saw it there on that full screen. 12 points was the next highest score for that USC team, but Stanford, the number 4 team in the country, they had a nice bounce-back win against number 7 UCLA. They won by 20. Right now, it seems like all those teams in the Pac-12 are just kind of, everyone is beating each other. Colorado also in that mix. When you look at the top of the standings right now, where do you think Stanford and USC will be at the end of the day?
I think that they'll be right around 1 and 2. I think they're 2 of the best teams. I think Stanford's going to be just okay. You lose 1 game in Pac-12 play, it's not the end of the world. Cameron Brink, she is one of the best players in the country. She went 4 for 14. That's an outlier. She's usually shooting close to 50%. So I think if you're Stanford, you're saying, look, we'll be okay. If you're USC, I think you're thinking the rest of the team's got to play a lot better. It can't just be Juju.
Right. I agree. I think Juju Watkins is a superstar in the Navy. No, already.
Well, she absolutely is a superstar. Well, we have got a ton of other stuff going on this weekend in college basketball. I mean, the upsets on the men's side, absolutely insane. It felt like every single team lost, and in the midweek, not just on the weekend. Everyone was looking forward to Saturday and Sunday, but Monday, Tuesday, every upset that you could ever imagine. I mean, UNC losing to Georgia Tech, it's just everyone.
Everyone and more. You mentioned Georgia Tech, they beat UNC. Yeah, Florida beating Kentucky. Boise State beats New Mexico. That's just 3. I mean, there were so many upsets this week, and it just feel like the standings were in a full, complete mess. Besides the past few weeks, when you look at the very top, let's look at the top 3, for example. UConn, Purdue, UNC, the top 3 best teams in the country. that's only been the last couple of weeks, but if you look before that, every other week has a different order at the top. That's how many switches there has been, and it's not only like it's a team, in the 10s or 20s of the rankings that's winning and there's some sort of upset and shaking up the standings. It's teams at the top that are losing too, and I think that's been the craziest part about this so far. Every team we're expecting to win falling short.
And it's not like teams at the top are losing to your 20s, your 25s. It's to these random teams that are near the bottom of the conference, but this is great for college basketball. This is exactly what you want as a fan. You want to be able to turn on a random game at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday and see a top 5 team lose. You want to see a Kortsdorf. This is why we love college basketball. It's for the crazy moments like this, and the sport has just gotten better and better over the past couple of years. We don't see your Kentuckys of the early 2010s. We were going 38-1. We're seeing everyone struggle, and it's just good for the sport as a whole.
At this point, when you look forward to March, and it's really hard to predict what can happen, because there are a lot of teams right now where I feel like, well, they could totally go all the way and win every game, or they could lose in the first round, because you really don't know. I think it's kind of at that point, like you mentioned, where if an opponent can find that team's weakness, any game is up for grabs. And you see it right there with those 6 games up on that full screen. You see Creighton, number 13, loses to Butler, a little rivalry there. Florida forces overtime against Kentucky. I had my eyes glued on that one. Go Gators. It's my team. 94-91. Adam, is there a game on there that stands out to you?
To me, I think it's Wisconsin-Nebraska, because somehow this Nebraska team just continues to win at home. They beat Purdue at home earlier in the season. It's just, in the Big Ten especially, it is impossible to win on the road. And I think Wisconsin was just looking ahead because they played the Boilermakers on Sunday. A lot of these teams that you see lost had massive games coming up later in the week. And, it's something that you see a lot in college basketball is, these young players, maybe a little bit immature. Right. They're looking at, look, on Saturday we play Duke, we play Kentucky. You got to remember, every game matters.
Especially when you look at a program like Florida. I don't mean to keep harping on my team, but Todd Golden, just in his second year as coach, that's a really inexperienced team, and it's a rivalry, a long SEC rivalry. They want to go in to Kentucky's home and beat them there, and I think right now that's what you're feeling, because there's not really any top team. Every game is up for grabs.
I think that's the most impressive thing too, is that a lot of these games were on the road. It was the away teams who won. A lot of times you see, like Nebraska, it's the home teams that pull off upsets. Mm-hmm. You also had these top home teams losing to random, non-ranked teams.
Yeah, I mean, Iowa State, obviously number 12, they lose to Baylor. They're undefeated at home, not so great on the road. Right now, there's really no consistency amongst the top teams in college basketball, but I think, honestly, Adam, that's why it is so much fun. All the favorites we expected to win during the week lost, like we've been talking about. It could be because their minds were on what was ahead. Over the weekend, we had a special lineup of back-to-back top 10 matchups, including the biggest and most historic rivalry in college basketball. Saturday afternoon, number 3 North Carolina beat number 7 Duke, winning 93-84. What stood out to you about this one?
I think that this cemented that North Carolina is the best team in the country to me. This UNC team has literally everything that you could ever ask for from a college basketball squad. Yeah. It all starts with RJ Davis. How is RJ Davis not a more household name? He is literally like everything you could ask for. A 4-year player who's stayed at the same school, who's been a star all 4 years. And then they have the star big. They have Armando Bacot, Elliot Cadeau, the incredible freshman. Yep. And then now in the new era, you add on the transfers in Cormac Ryan and Harrison Ingram. I mean, that is the perfect starting 5 for today's era of college basketball.
It seems reminiscent of the UNC squad that went all the way and went to back-to-back championships and won against Villanova. I think this UNC team is kind of unstoppable right now, and it starts with Armando Bacot. 25 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists. He's the first player to have that stat line in a UNC Duke game in 25 seasons. I mean, Hubert Davis was singing his praises after the game, telling everybody, we need him to do that. It's been a little bit of a quiet stretch for Armando Bacot, and I think that right now, as a primary center for that team, he can really do it all. You know who else is doing it all? Another center, Zach Edey, who had an absolute feast against Wisconsin, another top 10 matchup there. What do you think about that game?
I think that was one of the more impressive wins that we've seen all season from this Purdue squad.
Totally.
To go on the road and beat Wisconsin, it is never easy to win at the Kohl Center. And I think the thing that I love about this Purdue team is the improvement that we've seen with the guards.
Yeah.
Last year in the tournament, Braden Smith and Fletcher Loya, those are 2 freshman guards. Now they're sophomores. Now they're more experienced, and you see that they're composed. This environment's not going to get to them, and I think that's really going to pay off as the season goes on.
Braden Smith, 19. You had Lance Jones had 20. It's really been the other people around Zach Edey who've been contributing to Purdue's success. And I think what we've seen when Purdue gets into March Madness time is that Zach Edey kind of shrinks a little bit. And it's not only his fault, but I mean, the rest of the team really stepped up yesterday.
Yeah, and you see on our graphic there, Badgers couldn't buy a 3. They had only 3. Purdue also made only 3 3-pointers. So neither of these teams were really shooting well from deep. And I think that, if anything, says a lot about this Purdue squad, that they can play a not good game. They can play a game where they don't play perfect and still go into Wisconsin and beat the number 6 team in the country on the road. Now, look, I don't think this Wisconsin team is that good. I don't think that they are the number 6 team in the country, but it is still impressive.
You know, Purdue is one of those teams, like I said before, go into March, can go all the way, have a bad game, they're out in the first round.
Well, we'll see. That's going to be very exciting. Also, something very exciting coming up. I'm taking on Ryan Bridges in the Juicer. He's been talking a lot. I think I'm going to silence him. Stick with us.
Welcome back to No Pulp. I'm Adam Avin, and that's Adam Gotkin, and we're joined by this guy, Ryan Bridges. How you doing? You ready to talk some ball?
I'm doing good. I'm ready to beat this man right here.
We'll see about that. We'll see.
A lot of smack talk between these two, and we have a prize for the winner. No Pulp orange juice theme.
Tropicana.
It's fitting, right?
Give us a sponsor.
We'll put it right
Please
there.
pay us.
We'll put it right there. All right. Well, we got to get started here in the juicer. Ryan, I'm going to start with you. Opening lacrosse day, it was a big weekend. What was the best game from the weekend?
I mean, what's the upset that everyone's talking about right now? It's Colgate taking down number 4 Penn State. Pretty amazing that they were able to go into Happy Valley and do what they did. Liam Connor, right? 4 seconds left. Scores the game-winning goal for the Raiders. Penn State had this game, or they didn't have the game, but they had the game to where they could have just held the ball, gone into overtime, and likely would have won. They throw the ball away at midfield. Liam Connor goes the other way, scores his first career goal. That's what everyone's talking about in college lacrosse right now. I know they let us down with Syracuse today, but this is still an incredible upset. The Raiders, they haven't had a winning season since 2015. I mean, that's just incredible.
Look, that was a great win for Colgate. No one's gonna doubt that. It was a good win for Colgate, but that was a bad lacrosse game to watch. There were turnover after turnover after turnover. A great game all throughout, not just in the actual game on the field, but in quality. Was Johns Hopkins against Denver. 2 top 15s taking on each other, and a game that went into overtime. I mean, that game had everything you could ask for. It had the goal with time expiring. I think we're going to see that play a little bit later, but I mean, everything you could ask for more. That didn't feel like a week 1 game like the Penn State Colgate game did. It felt like a game that would be played in, late March. These teams were on their A game. Not a lot of turnovers. I mean, to me, this was the best game of the weekend, and there's no question.
All right. Both of you got a lot of energy out there. I love that we got to start off that way. And I know everyone is talking about that Penn State-Colgate game.
Oh, here comes the but.
But that was a great ending. That was the best game. Adam Gotkin gets the first point in the juicer. All right,
Two top 15 teams. They have a great game.
It was a great game.
It was a great game. Thank you. Yeah, it was.
You made it, just helped him out.
It was what's the best game?
No.
All right, we're switching over to the hardwood. Also a crazy slate of basketball games this weekend. So over to the men's side first. Adam, we'll start with you. Best moment from men's basketball this past week?
For me, it was probably the biggest upset of the entire week. We talked about them all, but Georgia Tech taking down North Carolina. That was an incredible game and an incredible moment. Georgia Tech is one of the worst teams in the ACC. They're one of the worst teams in all of Power 5. 3-8 in conference play, 10-12 overall. You beat North Carolina, who just beat Duke as well. And how it happened, to take the lead with 7 seconds left. And then UNC had a chance at the end. They call timeout, draw up a play, and then they don't score. So you had that defensive stop. You had the crazy bucket with 7 seconds to go. I mean, that game was incredible. And the court storm and just all of it.
Wow, a crazy shot with a couple seconds to go. I can't imagine.
That's a great moment. That's a great moment.
Exactly. That's why I should have won the first point, because my last point was a crazy shot with a couple seconds to go.
Come on.
So was mine.
Okay, you went with some D1 play. UNC should have never lost that game. The officiating was terrible. Elliot Cadeau should have never fouled out. I'm not going to D1. I'm going to D2. East Stroudsburg University, the Warriors, are taking down Kutztown, right? A 2-15 D2 team. Kutztown player tries to inbound the ball, and the East Stroudsburg player, Tyshawn Trail, just rips it away from the inbounder. I looked this up. You can actually do this in college basketball. If the ball is over the line, when was the last time you saw that, Adam?
Look,
You've never seen that before in college basketball. That's the answer right there. Come on.
All right. Look,
it's not a great moment.
All right, look,
It's a great moment.
Hold on. What I will say is that I don't know if it's something about me today, but I'm feeling a little technical. Georgia Tech beating UNC, great win for a great game. That was the best moment from that game. I've never seen that before, and Ryan Bridges gets the second point there. All right, we're going over to the women's side of things now, sticking with basketball. Ryan, we're going to go back to you for this first one. What was the biggest letdown by a performer or a team in women's college basketball?
I'm going with a team. I'm going with a team here. What's the team that's had the most bad press, most drama around them in women's college basketball this season? It's been LSU, and this team was a shell of themselves this week. Last Monday, they lose to Mississippi State, and it was a close game. It went down to the wire, but LSU played a terrible game in this one, and their stars have fallen off a cliff. Haley Van Lith, 4 points on 31 minutes. I get they lost to number 1 South Carolina, as most teams do, but this Mississippi State loss is terrible, and this LSU team has fallen from the tip-top program of college basketball. They returned so many great players, and now they're not a great team anymore. And it's just a terrible week for them.
You're completely disregarding that Mississippi State was 16-5 entering the game, that they've been consistently a great program in college basketball. This is the most obvious answer of all time. The number 2 team in the country lost 2 games. It's Kansas State, and there's no doubt about it. How can you be the number 2 team in the country, lose twice, and not be the biggest letdown? I mean, this is a Kansas State team that, look, I don't think was the number 2 team in the country, but they never looked good. The most that they led by all week long was 6 points. They never led in the game against Texas. This is a Kansas State team that ever since Ayoka Lee got hurt just has not looked good. They have played like a middle-of-the-pack Big 12 team as, again, the number 2 team in the country.
They lost to the number 12 team in Texas. That's not that big of a deal.
This was a hard one for me to decide. I got to admit, a lot of crazy women's basketball games, but I honestly think.
What is this?
All right, 20.
Let's give him a 20.
Well, no backsies, but the points going to Adam Gotkin.
There we go.
I want my money back.
The number 2 team in the country losing. I mean, you got to give it to him. It was a bad weekend.
Fine.
Adam Gotkin.
I'm taking my
win in the juicer.
First win.
All right. Well, coming up, Adam and I, we take a trip over to Wall Street. What team stock is rising and who is crashing? It's no Pulp after the break.
Come on, it's not that hard.
My big man fingers are having a problem with these little tiny buttons.
Whoa, watch it there. Your blood pressure's gonna go through the roof.
Tell me about it. I'm trying to learn how to get it down. Instead, it keeps going up.
High blood pressure can increase the risk for heart attack or stroke. Learn how to keep yours at a healthy range.
Ever hear a voice command? Just say text barbershop to 97779.
That's not what I said.
Just give me that. Now my blood pressure's up.
they'll test you. Try to break your will. But however loud the loudness gets, however many cheese puffs may fly, you're the driver, the one in control. Stand firm. Just wait. And move only when you hear the click that says they're buckled in for the drive. Never give up till they buckle up.
Welcome back into our Citrus TV studios. Avin, Adam Gotkin. Hopefully we've figured this out by now. You know, the handsome one, the one.
Right. We got to talk about this later.
All right. We'll talk about that more later. What we're going to talk about now is what teams in the month of January got their stock go up, what teams had their stock go down. We're going to start with stock going up. Adam, what about you? What's your first team?
My first team might be a little bit of a surprise, but I'm going Texas. And I know they had a losing record in January. They went 4-5, but this team is on a complete roll right about now. They have really turned it around, and it's a lot to do with Max Abmas, their star transfer from Oral Roberts, averages almost 18 points a game. He has been elite this year for the Longhorns. And also, Adam, you sent me a thing earlier. You're helping me here. Chandel Weaver might be their secret weapon. He seemed to hit their minutes go from 16 minutes a game to about 26 minutes per game, and they've won 2 straight against ranked opponents. They took Houston, the number 4 team in the country. I know they lost to Kansas, but this happened before that, all the way to overtime, and they only lost by 4 points. This Texas team is on the turnaround. I like what I'm seeing.
Yeah, this Texas team has been great. I said that they were going to beat Baylor, if you remember that. I've been high on this Texas team for a while. Another team that I love right now, the South Carolina Gamecocks. This team up to number 15 in the country. The last time that South Carolina was ranked, 2017, they made the Final Four. And to beat Kentucky, to beat Tennessee, the 2 best teams in the SEC, I mean, it's just incredible what they do, and what they do on the defensive end is the most impressive thing. This team plays slow. They have not allowed 80 points yet this season, and it's a weird defense as well because they're not going to steal the ball. They have the least amount of steals per game in the SEC, yet they don't give up points.
Right, South Carolina in the SEC, obviously they're doing well. I don't know if it's a surprise, but their stock definitely
They're up to 15 in the country.
Definitely going up. And while there are some teams on the up and up, Adam, there are some teams whose stock is completely crashing. So which is a team right now that you see is just not playing the way that they should be?
Well, it's one of the teams that South Carolina beat, and that is the Kentucky Wildcats. John Calipari is on the hot seat. It's not just me saying this. It's the Kentucky fans. Look at any Kentucky message board, and they all want Cal gone. I mean, look at these 3 losses. Look at how many points Kentucky gives up. The defense is awful. The first time in the history of Rupp Arena that Kentucky has given up more than 94 points in 3 straight home games. And look, I'm not doubting that they have a lot of talent. They might be one of the most talented teams in the country with Rob Dillingham coming off the bench. The talent never ends, but at the end of the day, it's the defense that is just that bad. The defense might be one of the worst teams in the entire country.
Yeah, the defense is definitely not there for Kentucky, but the defense also isn't there for another team, except this time I'm going to women's basketball, and I really hope that our friend Ryan Bridges isn't mad at me because I'm going with LSU here. Their stock has completely dropped in January, and honestly, you know, again, like Ryan said, there's been a lot of drama around this LSU team all year, starting with Kim Mulkey and Angel Reese's random disappearance from the squad. And you see this stretch right here, 3 straight losses to Mississippi State, the number 1 team in the country, in South Carolina. But in that game, they led for most of the game, and Angel Reese fouled out. They lost that game by themselves. 3 of their 4 losses as a team came in the month of January. If that's not stock down, I don't know what is.
I mean, yeah, it was a really, really rough time recently for LSU. Now, those are teams that have done good and bad. What about the middle? Just teams that have been okay recently.
Yeah, this one, I don't know if it's going to be a little bit of a surprise, but I'm going to go Duke here. And I know you're thinking, well, they're one of the best teams in the country. I know they lost to UNC. They're the 3rd best team in the country. But the reason I'm saying Duke is because if you look at the numbers, they have been a little bit up and down. Kyle Filipowski, their star stretch 5. I mean, he has had multiple games this year with single-digit points scored. He has not been playing at the dominance that we thought he would have in a return in his 2nd season. Got absolutely punked by Armando Bacot in that UNC game. And I think it's been they've come really close in some of their games and their losses. Specifically, there was one game to Clemson last week, a couple weeks ago, where it was right down to the wire. They get a foul, a bailout call, and ended up winning that game by 1 point in Death Valley. That was just a game where they probably should have lost. Then obviously they had another close one with Georgia Tech, who they lost to prior. Duke, they're saying the same right now. They're talented to be a top 10 team, but I do think a little bit of work needs to be done.
I'm going to go with an ACC team as well. My team is Virginia. They're the most okay team of all. You'll never see a more team than Virginia this year. The second slowest team in the country. They stink to watch, and they're just always in that spot where it's are they going to miss the tournament or are they on the bubble? There were a couple times this year where they're ranked 22nd, 25th. They've been 5-3 this month, but they're still receiving votes. So they're okay. I like this Virginia team though. I think that Reese Beekman is a great player, and I think that they have the leadership. They have the three-point shooting. I mean, they've got two of their stars who shoot over 45% from the three-point line. So, I guess we'll see what this
Virginia
team.
absolutely dominated Miami today, by the way. So, I like your pick there.
That was a big win for them. Well, our time coming to an end here on No Pulp. When we come back, we'll have our top plays of the week and our final words.
Yo, camping buddy. Okay, you guys ready?
Dude, I thought you were driving.
I thought you were driving.
Oh, I never said I was driving.
I definitely can't drive.
Okay.
If you're high, just don't drive. It's illegal everywhere. If you feel different, you drive different.
There's one thing you can never have sex without.
It's not something you buy.
Or something you take.
In fact, there's only one way to get it.
It has to be given to you, freely.
It's consent.
Because sex without it isn't sex.
It's rape. Consent.
If you don't get it, you don't get it.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
Welcome back to No Pulp. Adam Gotkin is right over there. We'll get to him in a second. But first, I have to talk about my play of the week. For my play of the week, it's a play that never counted. Why talk about this? Well, number 12 Iowa State went on the road to number 18 Baylor. And watch what happens when the game got down to the wire. This was just a crazy showing. Just under 1 second left, Milan Momcilovic hits a big shot from the logo, wins the game, and there's a lot of confusion around. Look at that. The ball, oh, it's in his hands. That's a pretty far out view, but look at this. Here's a close-up one. Doesn't get the shot off. A game winner gets taken away for the Cyclones, and Baylor survives.
Well, you have a play that doesn't count. Mine's a play that does. I said I love that Johns Hopkins Denver game earlier, and the top play from that was the tying goal to send it to overtime. J.J. Stillstrop, he had a sock trip on the day. That's 6 goals if you've never heard of the term, going by Gary Gate. But let's take a look at this game-tying goal. There were 2 seconds left on the clock. Somehow they find him, and then the rip from the top of the box to tie it. I mean, when in the world did you think that he was ever going to have time to get the shot off? And the perfect bounce past Ireland, one of the best goalies in the country. I mean, this is a shot that, really can create a season. Without that shot, Denver loses this game. It goes in. It's one of the best shots that I've ever seen, to be honest.
Well, it was definitely a really good shot, but let's get on to our final words. My final word is a warning out to all of Division I's men's basketball. Do not sleep on the Owls. That's right. Head coach Dusty May led FAU to the Final Four in 2023, and don't be shocked if they go on a run again. The Owls are in the middle of a 7-game winning streak, including a John L. Davis game winner against North Texas. Not to mention a double OT win against Arizona earlier this year. This squad in Boca Raton, Florida, that plays in a 3,000-seat arena, basically a high school gym, is getting visits from Jimmy Butler and Alexander Barkov. The hype is real, and teams should not want to face FAU come March.
I like FAU. I think that they're a team that can be really good. But now, my final word is a message to all of the college basketball coaches. Yeah, I know you guys are watching. Get off the court. It's gotten out of hand. Every single time I turn on a game, I see a coach who's supposed to be on the sideline at least 10 feet on the court. And the list of the top-tier coaches who are guilty of this goes on and on and on. You look at Bruce Pearl, Shaka Smart, Danny Hurley, Tom Izzo, all of the biggest names. I love the passion, but it has gone too far. The NCAA said it was going to enforce it. They finally did in the Baylor game. Scott Drew got teed up, he got ejected, and the Baylor athletic director said that it was a sham, his exact quote, an embarrassment to the league. Now, look, I think it was the right call, but college basketball coaches have to stay off the court because that's an embarrassment.
It was an embarrassment. I mean, you see it all the time now. Coaches run to the court. They're not players in the game, right? I mean, it's been crazy. It completely fits the craziness of this week in college basketball. Well, that's all the time we have on this episode of No Pulp. Thank you to all of our producers. Quick shout out to my dad. Happy birthday from Adam Gotkin and Adam Avin. We'll see you next time, and thanks for watching.